But where I am going to start the show is a blistering coroner's report. It says a young man's drowning may have been prevented if Wellington City Council had investigated previous deaths and accidents at the waterfront, kept accurate records and heeded experts' advice. Coroner Catherine Krieg released her decision yesterday into the death of Sandy Culkin and, amongst other things, said it was clear Wellington City Council knew about identified safety risks at the waterfront but failed to act on them. She added, arguably, that the council's approach over the years has tipped in favour of amenity and aesthetic considerations over safety. Sandy Culkin's body was found by police divers in Wellington Harbour July 17, 2021. He'd been missing for a week. He died after a night out with friends following work drinks on Friday the 9th of July. Friends say when he left the bar on Courtney Place just after midnight, he had been drinking but was still able to hold a conversation and was steady on his feet. Once outside, Culkin's trip took him along the waterfront towards the railway station where he intended to catch the late train home to Porirua, north of Wellington. It was also the council's recommended safety route for those leaving town and heading north. No one witnessed him falling, but parts of his journey was captured on CCTV, and one of the last images shows him walking past Ferg's kayaks. Shortly afterwards, at the northern end of Queen's Wharf, near the East by West ferry berth, Sandy fell into the harbour and accidentally drowned in the early hours of July 10, the coroner has found. His family believe he fell on a pontoon, hit his head and fell into the water, but was unable to climb out because of the weight of his clothes. There was a metal access ladder down at the water near where he was found. Now, for the past 3 years, Sandy's father, Roger, has been trying to draw attention to what he considered a neglect by the council to address safety at the waterfront. And he joins me now. Roger, good afternoon.
Hello, Leah. How are you?
I'm good, Roger. And first, my deepest sympathies for the loss of your son. I can only imagine how devastating it has been for you and your family. And I imagine reading the coroner's report hits home on how much this has impacted you all. Firstly, Roger, what was Sandy like?
Oh, he was a lovely kid. You know, he was extremely popular, well liked. The amount of people that turned up at his service was just showed everybody just how popular he was. Plus, you know, there would have been at least 300 people there, plus 200 watching it online from all over the world. He was one thing I actually learned at the time, that he was huge in the gaming world online, which you know, I wasn't aware that. I knew he was right into gaming, but I didn't realise that he was that big. But no, he was very, very well liked. He was a very loyal friend to his friends, and his friends certainly mourned his loss as much as we have. So he was a really good human being, to be honest.
Roger, his death wasn't an isolated incident, was it? Over the previous 17 years, 7 people have drowned in the harbour. 6 of those deaths occurred at night. The coroner says the council knew of safety risks since 2013, didn't they?
Well, it was actually longer than that, because there was a lighting report back in 2005, and that's in the coroner's report as well, that said that particularly around the area where Sandy drowned, that the lighting was inadequate, and that still hadn't been addressed when Sandy went in 2021. I don't believe it's been addressed yet, but they have a plan to fix that area as far as all that's concerned. Yep.
Coroner Greg, so given these statistics, the council was or should have been on notice that people were at risk of dying at Wellington's waterfront, and that risk was heightened at night, as you've mentioned too, with lighting, after people had been out and about. Do you, Roger, believe Sandy's death could have been prevented?
Oh, definitely could have been prevented. I mean, they had all of those reports, 2005, 2011, 2000. You know, but all of them pointed out the risk areas around where Sandy died, and none of those issues were addressed through that whole period of time. They just kept getting more reports and more reports and more reports. And the expert report writer, Frank Stocks, he was actually pleading with them to take notice of it in the end. I mean, there was another death down there in 2015. It was really similar to Sandy's, and that was Finbar Clabby. I knew Finbar Clabby as well, so for me to know two people who are drowned in the same very short space of a very short area tells me that obviously there's a major problem down there that they should have been aware of.
Roger,
and they were aware of it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, in your investigations, you found out that the council also didn't record or investigate any deaths in the harbour. Why did they see it as not their problem? Whose problem was it? Was it work and health?
No,
safety?
No, they felt it was just up to the coroner and the police to investigate. There's a gap in the legislation which the coroner has also talked about, what they call a lacuna in the legislation, and she has that has allowed the Wellington City Council to step away from its responsibilities to a certain extent down there. While it accepts that it is responsible for safety down there, it's allowed them to step away from actually doing anything about it. So the coroner has sent all that information through to MB, the chief executives of MBDIA, the local government and ACC, and asked them to have a look at the whole situation because, WorkSafe would never get involved because they saw it as a grey area. I did actually find that interesting because WorkSafe investigated the Lachlan Jones death down south, and they prosecuted the Gore District Council, and that was a public amenity where a young child drowned in the observation ponds there, and I can't really see the difference, to be honest, between that and the situation on the Wellington Waterfront.
Can you, Roger, did you want to see as a prosecution of part of the council part of this?
I think that I just want to see them fix the problems that are down there. I just don't want this happening to anybody else.
Yeah.
The thing, and as you know, I was 11, went in there in the harbour around by Te Papa 21 months after Sandy, and again, part of my investigations into Sandy's death, I was able to bring up a report that the council had done 7 months before Isaac died, and it pointed to the issues on the Te Papa promenade, and it specifically said somebody could fall in here and drown. And nothing had been done about it, and that's exactly what happened 7 months later. And it was very similar to the situation with Sandy. Obviously, there were a large number of reports that were done, and all of them pointed out the risks, and nothing had been done.
Wellington's mayor, I see, Tori Whānau, says she's read the coroner's report and accepted the findings, and that the council has set aside a budget of $11.1 million to edge protect in their 25-26 budget. Does that go far enough in your mind? Does that give you some relief?
It gives me some relief that they have done that, but she's also said that they've got to go out for consultation, and so that's not a guarantee.
Right.
And people talk about the cost of it, but you look at, that's not just edge protection. Obviously, that's fixing the walls along there anyway, and it's work that has to be done anyway. It's remedial work that has to be done anyway, is included in that. And those walls need earthquake strengthening as well. So there would be other costs involved in that. People talk about the cost of it, but you look at the cost of, they've just recently built the cycleway all the way from Point Jerningham down to Evans Bay, and part of that cost was they put a balustrade all the way along there. There have been no deaths that I've come across down in that area of people falling into the water, yet they still put a balustrade all the way along that would have cost a lot more. The cost in the overall scheme of things is, it's not massive compared to a lot of the other works that they're doing around Wellington at the moment.